King Dushyanta rode out at the head of a vast army, and the forest before him would not survive the encounter. Ādi Parva, Book 1, Chapter 63. In the previous chapter, a questioner asked a Brahmin narrator for the lineage of the Kurus from its very beginning. The narrator described King Dushyanta, the great Parva lord who held sway over a quarter of the earth, kept the order of the Varnas, and stood matchless in strength and martial accomplishment. Now that king rides forth. The mighty armed king set out into the forest with his vast army, surrounded by hundreds of horses and elephants. About him moved hundreds of warriors, heroes bearing swords and spears, others with maces and clubs, and still others gripping javelins and lances. The lion roars of his warriors filled the air, mingled with the blare of conches and kettle drums, the deep rumble of chariot wheels, the trumpeting of war elephants, the neighing of horses, battle cries, and the sharp crack of clapping hands. A great tumult arose as the king moved out. From the high terraces of the palace, women watched him pass in all his royal splendor, that warrior who fashioned glory through his own valor. They beheld him weapon in hand, the peer of Shakra, Indra king of the Devas, slayer of enemies, foremost repeller of war elephants, and they held him in the highest regard. This is that tiger among men, they said, of wondrous valor in battle. Once the power of his arm falls upon them, enemy hosts are no more. Speaking such words, the women praised the Lord of men with deep affection and showered flowers upon his head. Eminent Brahmins praised him on all sides wherever he passed, and he rode out in great delight, intent on hunting deer. The citizens and country folk followed him a great distance, and only when the king had given them leave did they turn back. The Lord of the earth filled all the land with the thunder of his chariot. Swift as Suparna Garuda, the divine eagle lord, and the sound rose to the very heavens. Traveling onward, the wise king came upon a forest that rivaled Nandana, Indra's celestial pleasure grove. It was thick with bilva, arka, and khadira trees, dense with kapitha and dhava trees, rough with hillside rocks and boulders, waterless, without human settlement, extending for many yojnas, and filled with fearsome herds of deer and other wild creatures. King Dushyanta, with his attendants, army, and cavalry, swept through that forest, slaying many kinds of animals. He brought down tigers that came within bowshot, piercing them through with arrows. Some animals he shot from a distance, others that drew close, he cut down with his sword. He slew black deer with his lance and ranged the forest with boundless valor, well versed in every art of combat. He moved through the trees, striking down deer and birds with javelins, swords, maces, clubs, and curved blades. As the great forest was driven through by the king and his battle-eager warriors, the large animals fled and abandoned it. The herds of deer, their groups scattered, and their leaders slain, raised cries of distress here and there. Some reached a dried-up riverbed and fell there in a daze, worn thin by hopeless thirst, their hearts exhausted from the relentless chase. Overcome by hunger and fatigue, others collapsed to earth and were devoured by the famished hunters. Some of the hunters kindled fires, fed them with wood, and cut up the flesh to eat there in the proper manner. The great wild elephants, maddened and wounded by weapons, tucked their trunks in fear and fled at great speed. Voiding dung and urine and streaming with blood, those vast forest creatures trampled many men in their flight. The forest itself, shrouded beneath the army like a thundercloud, drenched in cascading showers of arrows, crowded with buffalo, and stripped of its great animals by the king, presented a fierce and stirring sight. The chapter establishes Dushyanta as a king of immense worldly power, praised by women and Brahmins as he departs, then consuming an entire forest in a hunt, that leaves animals fallen and the earth itself scattered with the slain. In the next chapter, the king reaches the hermitage of Kashyapa, separated from his retinue while hunting. A king crosses an arid plain and discovers a forest of surpassing beauty beside the sacred river Malini. The journey continues in the next chapter.